Okay, so just to be perfectly clear, I wasn't paid in any way for this video. This is just a couple of tile guys talking. It's not a sponsored video. I just want to be perfectly clear about that. So hope you enjoy the conversation that we had. Okay, so I'm back with Bryant, and today we're gonna talk about showers and just some history and some stuff about that, and some personal, what's the word I'm looking for? Some personal experiences that we've had. There you go, experiences.
That's why I'm here, Sal.
Yeah, I know. You gotta remember, I'm a little bit older than you, so my brain doesn't work quite as well as yours.
Okay, mine's the same way. So interject when I need help.
Okay, so now you were a tile guy, actually installing tile for what, 20 years before you started with Schluter?
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, I started with my dad, and I think when we talked about it in the other session, you and I probably started around 1984-ish.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started about the same time.
Yeah. And since we're talking about showers, I've been thinking about this and realizing that tile showers in particular weren't as popular back then as they are today, right?
Yeah. And and even, do you remember the plastic tiles?
Oh yeah. And how about the real thin tin tiles too, that would just pop off? Yeah.
So people will use all kinds of stuff to make a shower, and waterproofing wasn't like as big a concern as it is today.
Oh, it wasn't even considered, really.
Yeah. And like, for example, when you first started, what kind of like methods do you use to waterproof? You obviously had to have some kind of shower pan, which I've seen all kinds of different ones. So, like in my area, like copper pans were the thing.
Right. So that was your experience primarily, was going over
up until I
mean at the beginning.
At the beginning, yeah. Well, here in the Boston area, copper was king. Copper pans. Every shower you did, right, had a copper pan, and then you would put the backer board in. Sometimes it would be a lot of times it was even just sheetrock.
Sheetrock, yeah.
Right. You put the sheetrock in, or the backer board, like a cement board or whatever, and then it'd go over the lip of the copper pan. The copper pan wouldn't even go over the curb; it'd just go up the side of the curb.
Wow.
Right. Okay. And then you put your mud in, and then you tile it. That was your shower. And then when you got a leak downstairs, you wondered why.
Right. Well, I guess we talked about this before too. You're located close to Boston. And so some of the methods were influenced by what was happening there. The plumbers with copper pans.
Oh yeah. That's so just, because you would have to get a plumber to install the copper pan. You couldn't do it. And you would have.
So my experience was different. I picked this up just recently.
Coralie.
Yeah. This one's made by another company named Odie.
Odie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vinyl liners.
PVC or chlorinated polyethylene vinyl liner.
Yeah. I don't have the technical terms.
No, but that's,
that's what it is. I know.
I had to learn all those as an instructor for Schluter. But this is really what we used up here. We didn't have the copper pans. But before I talk about what we did, even today, there's still these vinyl pan liners available.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people still use those.
Copper pans. I've heard of lead pans.
Yeah.
Even
on the East Coast, they use the hot mop. On the West Coast, they use hot mop.
West Coast, that's right. And just to let your audience know, I usually travel about 44 weeks out of the year in different parts of the country, and I'll hear the different pan liners, that are used. And so, you were in the Boston market. I was up here in upstate New York where we use the vinyl, but to hear those other products is interesting, like the hot mop you just mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen actually torn out where they had like, this product, I forget what you call it, but it was like a plastic product that they spread.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you call it, but it was like, but you know, I don't tear anything out anymore but I used to, right? And you'd come across all kinds of inventive methods that they would use because they didn't want to spend the money for either a coral oil liner or for a copper pan. And they invent all kinds of different methods, which, you know, would eventually fail.
Yeah. Well, getting back to this liner, this is what we had available. And it's interesting because when you talk about the 80s, when you and I were starting, you use what's locally available.
Yeah.
So you had plumbers who put in a copper pan. We had plumbers that sometimes they would do this.
Yeah.
But not always.
Yeah.
And we discovered that when the plumbers would do it, they didn't understand that there should be slope for this.
Pre-slope underneath. Yeah.
Yeah, because let's just think of this almost like a roof where water needs to flow to the weep holes of a drain.
Yeah, because the people, the plumbers, they put it in, they'd walk away, and then the tile guy would come in a lot of times, and the liner was in because the plumber, so it had to be right because the plumber put it in, right?
Right.
And then they come in and put their mud in. They wouldn't worry about weep holes. They wouldn't worry about any of that stuff. And then, especially because no subfloor is, especially in a house which is a few years old, it's never level, so it's always like tilted to one, you know, usually away from the foundation. So you put that vinyl liner in, and all the water would accumulate to the lowest end and would never go down the weep holes.
Right. So what's interesting, Sal, is in my travels, and I go into different states, and it's very encouraging now because they're stating that the inspectors now will check to see if there's pitch or slope with the pan liner. Now, I don't know if it's that way in Massachusetts, but in other states, that's encouraging because they will fail the liner or the waterproof membrane if there isn't pitch to the.
Well, where I am here, usually the inspector doesn't come and check the vinyl liner. They don't check it.
Okay.
So
it depends. It depends
on the state. Like some states they require like a flood test.
Yeah.
But you know, and then it has to be inspected. It has to pass. Over here, I've never seen an inspector come for a flood test. I've seen them come to inspect the plumbing, to inspect the electrical, to inspect whatever, right? But never say, you know, they look at the tile shower. Yeah, it's good. And
yeah, it's interesting because it isn't uniform around the country. But I do know that some contractors have told me where, you know, I can't think of an actual city right now, but they would say, oh yeah, we have to do a flood test. An inspector will come in. And that is a bit encouraging because it is kind of saying to not only the tile contractor, but also if it is a plumber, that they're doing these things properly, you know?
Yeah, you know, I've had arguments with plumbers.
Yeah, we all have.
Right?
No insult to plumbers, by the way, but
so I remember one in particular. It was for a builder, and I would argue with the builder about the pre-slope. Right. So one day I go in and there's this vinyl liner is down, and they carved out, you know, for the 3-piece drain, for the 2-stage drain, they carved out so it would be sit flat, so they could put the liner in and it wouldn't have that bump up. Yeah, so that part at the bottom would sit
right here. These.
Yeah, so it would sit flat. You know, that edge would sit flush with the plywood, right?
Instead of here.
Instead of there, right?
Yeah.
So so I'm on the phone with him, right? I'm on the phone with him, and I'm telling him, no, we got to raise this. Because he already had the vinyl liner in, right? We got to raise this. We got to put a pre-slope in. And he's saying, no, you don't. You don't have to do that. I says, yes, you do have to do that. And he says, no, you don't have to do that. So we're arguing back and forth. And then finally I get a PDF because Odie has a PDF of the pre-slope, and I send it to him, right?
I think I got
so
it.
Now, finally, I actually have to cut out the drain, you know, raise it up, right? Exactly. It's that exact thing. That exact thing, right?
Right. There it
And you
is.
think the plumber would know that.
When you buy this liner,
Yeah.
the instructions are there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, how can you argue with this, right?
Well, you can. You can. So
Well,
that's the exact argument I had more than once, right? So he's calling me an idiot, and I'm calling him, I won't say what, but
yeah.
so finally, because I'm doing the shower, I had to have my way. So I ended up cutting it out, raising it, doing whatever I had to do, put the pre-slope in, and then put the vinyl liner in. And there's actually a video of that shower and that pre-slope
Nice.
online, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the argument that went beforehand obviously isn't.
That would be funny to put the argument before.
Yeah, I know. Well,
because you're not the only one who had those arguments.
Yeah, I know. And you would think that they would be the ones that should know. Now I don't. I have a nephew that's a plumber, right? So I have nothing against plumbers, but that part of the installation, I think, should be left to the tile guy.
Well, you see, I think that's why we are where we are today. And, I'll just put a little plug here, but Mr. Schluter creating the Curdy drain in 2001 is because it was so frustrating that you had this other trade that really didn't understand entirely what we needed in our trade, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to fight those fights like you did, like I did. I got to the point where my local builders knew to just keep the plumbers away from if I'm doing a shower, just let Bryant
I had a similar and to get builders away from the copper pan around here. I had one GC that always went to the copper pan.
Well, that's what they're used to, right?
I know that's what they know.
That's what they know.
So finally, what happened? Because now what happens is because the copper's more expensive now, a lot more expensive.
I was going to ask you just quickly if what is the difference between a vinyl pan and a copper pan? It's got to be, what, $100 here compared to $1,000?
Well, it depends on the size of the copper pan, but a copper pan could be anywhere from $300 to $800, depending on the size of the thing. I haven't actually seen a copper pan I've actually seen them and I've had them ripped out, right? But I haven't actually used a copper pan for many years now. So, but at the time when they were doing it, I would hear like they charged $400 or $500. If it was a big shower, it'd be like $1,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've heard even $1,000.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the shower.
Mm-hmm.
So now I lost my train of thought. So the contractor, right? So the GC, right?
Yeah.
So the way I got him to go to like a seal system like Schluter was he couldn't get, because the plumber wouldn't be the one actually making the copper pan. They'd have to send it to a metal, what do you call them?
Fabrication.
Yeah. Couldn't find anyone to make them anymore.
Oh boy.
Right. So that was my in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was stuck.
He was stuck. I say, something, let me take care of it. I'll take care of it. Yeah. And ever since then, right? This is like years and years and years now. Ever since then, right? Every shower is a Schluter shower.
Yeah.
So, so just, bonding flange is so much easier, so much quicker, so much better.
Well, let's talk about the, you do your videos and you've got years of experience, and I've been with Schluter 22 years and I've done a lot of educational seminars. So we're both, we're two guys that have had tons of experience and we teach people. And currently, really, there's really just two types of showers, right? And we've been talking about
water in
liner. Yeah. Or you know what? I was reading the Tile Council handbook. I see it just behind your left shoulder. And it's called a water containment membrane. So just think about that. It's there to contain the water so it doesn't spread to other parts of the house. So that makes sense. And that's why we did it. We knew nobody wanted
water in, water out.
Right. And the water in, meaning that water will get through, the grout joints.
Yeah, go through the tile, the grout joints, the mortar, filter through the mortar.
Get back to that picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Some water will get through the tile assembly into this mortar bed.
Yeah.
And then we've got these weep holes. I'll just bring back this drain body here. So there's the weep holes.
Just a second.
You got one too?
Yeah. I have the exact same one.
There you go. There you go. Oh, you got a square grate. See, I'm still dealing with the round ones here. But so Sal, that's where you use the term water into the mortar bed assembly and out via the weep holes.
Yeah, so that has the weep holes in it. You got your finger on a channel. It has a channel, right?
Yep, right here.
It has a channel, and then it also has in the grooves. If you see here, right, it's got like grooves.
Yeah.
So that it has many different ways for the water to evacuate out through the
you just
drain.
said it. You said many ways.
Yeah,
and that's because there is a good amount of water that ends up into this setting bed.
If you get one of these showers, right, one of these types of systems here, and you got your mud bed down, and you pour your water into that system, like a mud bed with a two-stage drain, right?
Yeah, this type of drain.
Once the mud gets saturated, right, because the mud's going to absorb a lot of water.
It's porous.
Yeah. So there's actually going to be a lot of water, probably like 3-4 gallons of water. It's going to be like saturated into the mud. Once it gets saturated, the water comes out of the weep holes almost as quickly as it goes in.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? You must have seen that, right?
Yeah.
So, but the problem with that is the mud is saturated, and it's never going to dry out. You could probably.
That is a true statement. And, I've met installers who lived with this type of shower and switched to I'll go back to it. We have a water containment system, traditional water in, water out that we just mentioned, with all those type of pan liners. And then you have the bonded waterproof membranes like our Curdy and roll-on and trowel-on type of membranes. So those are bonded on the surface, preventing, say, the mortar bed from.
Yeah, and then a lot of times that roll on or painted on, they'll use a divot method.
Oh yeah, and that's something they're supposed to do.
Yeah,
but I found it very rare that in all the workshops I've done. I find it very rare to find a contractor who's done the divot method.
Yeah.
So it kind of begs the question, first of all, that's an industry standard. Number two, all the manufacturers say to do it that way. So, I guess at the end of the day, we always want people to follow directions, right?
Well, yeah.
I don't care what you use or, Yeah,
well, the thing is this, right? If you've got a method or if you have a standard or you got a manufacturer, right? These methods didn't just pluck them out of thin air, right? They're being tested, they're being developed, and they're being modified. And then to come to a point where they know you have a system that works, right? So once you have that system that works and you know that it works because it's gone through all these testings and development and stuff like that, then you want to follow those instructions and those recommendations so that you have a system that it is proven to work.
Right.
That's why the TCNA and manufacturer recommendations are so important.
Yeah, I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, in that book, that Tile Council handbook, and we talked about it last time, but my earliest one here is 1999, which is 40 pages. The book behind you is like 470 pages.
Yeah, a few changes.
But I was looking at it because we just stated that there's two methods of showers: the water containment, which is with these different subsurface pan liners under the mortar bed, and then the topical bonded waterproof.
Yeah, I refer to them as water in, water out, and sealed systems.
There you go, a sealed system. So I noticed in the handbook there's 6 methods for the water containment method, and there's two methods for the bonded sealed system. And you know, one person might say, well, how come there's more of the other one? It's just because there's different ways of going about doing the you know, water in, water out system.
Yeah.
And the sealed system, I think when you realize there's only two methods in the tile council, it's because they're fairly simple. You
Yeah.
know, they're not as complex as what we dealt with.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of it. A simple system is much more difficult to get it wrong.
To mess up.
Yeah,
I mean,
to mess up. And then when you've got then you got a seal system and you got a waterproofing membrane, whether it be the Curdy board or whether it be the Curdy fabric, right? And it just lines the whole system, right?
mhm.
Now, when you're doing a water in, water out, usually most people will put backer board in it, right?
Right. Right.
But then you've got different kinds of backer boards, right? You've got the gypsum type with the waterproof coating on the front, and then you've got hardy backer board, and then you've got a real cement board type like Durock or
Like
Wonderboard,
Durock.
right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people equate the Wonderboard. Now I don't want specific names, but the cement board and the fiber cement board, right? They equate them as being exactly the same, but they're not,
Mhm.
right? Because one is water safe and can be buried like in the mud. And you can look in the TCA handbook. The other one can't, right?
Right. Right.
So
That's right. That's an interesting detail where you can see one that's placed low into the pan liner, and then you mud up to it.
yeah,
And then there's the other type of panel or board that has to remain above the mortar bed.
because it's got cellulose in it. It's got those fibers in it. It's a fiber cement board. And I've actually seen that because a lot of people put that in the mud. In the mud, it gets saturated. Then when you rip it out, it turns to mush.
Mhm.
Whereas if you've got like a cement board, it's wet, right? But it's still intact.
Well, that's really so good too in the education process that we've all been in, is that, people are starting to understand that, cement backer boards are, resistant to water and they don't break down, but they're not waterproof.
Yeah. And there's a lot of problems with that too, because, like as you say, because there's still a lot of guys out there. They put the cement board up and then they tile it, right? And then it's watertight. And a lot of times they won't even put like the seam tape on it,
Right.
right? So if you don't put that, because you want a monolithic plane, right? So when you put that seam, you're getting those individual panels and you're creating one big panel, right?
Right.
And then in the corners, a lot of times you need movement for the corners. So when you put that seam tape in the corners, you want to embed the tape, but you don't want to fill the corner, right? And then
so it's
so there's like little things that you need to know that are never done correctly.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got like a manufacturer that gives you the whole system and tells you how to do it, it's a lot easier to follow those instructions.
And it's good even with backer board. It looks like it's a simple product, but we always tell our customers, if you're using any backer boards, follow their directions, right?
Manufacturer's directions. And then now liquid applied waterproofing membranes are great, right? But a lot of people, they don't apply them correctly because you need a mill thickness, and you're supposed to have a mill gauge.
Yep.
Do I have one handy?
I think I got one here.
I should have thought of this before.
I got one, Sal.
There you go. Right.
Yep.
So when you're applying it, you need to apply it correctly so that you get the correct mill thickness. Otherwise, you're not going to get the protection you're supposed to have.
Yep. And Sal, that's another funny aspect of my job is asking, because let's say I've got a dozen tile guys in the room and I say, how many do liquid applied? And all the hands go up. And then I'll say, okay, who's got that correct tool to check the thickness? And maybe one hand will go up. So they do need this. And if they don't have this, I don't know how they can gauge if they're doing the right thickness. It's got to be difficult, right?
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you anything you do, right, it's all about experience and, having used a product and understanding the product. If you've done it and and you keep on doing it and you do it the right way, then obviously you're going to have some, you're going to know how to do it. But if you just like, oh, this is what, roll it on, and then give it another coat, and you're done. Now, on the walls, it's probably going to be okay. But if you're doing that on a mud bed, right, and you're using like a divot method, right, or you're using that as your water, you want to be damn sure that you've got that exactly the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah. So, because that's why one of the reasons why I won't do a different method, because I feel that if you're going to be doing a shower, you got to have a membrane on there, right, for me to feel comfortable.
Yeah. So going back, I mean, we talked about our traditional, the water in, water out, 2-stage drain system with a clamping ring. And like you just mentioned, if you're doing a liquid applied, you would float your mud and then drop it down into what you just called a divot.
Yeah.
Now,
and then you fill that divot with just regular mud.
Right. But before you do that, if you're doing liquid applied, you may need to wait, depending on the manufacturer. It may be 24 hours. It may be 48. I've even seen as high as 72 hours.
Yeah.
Before the application of liquid applied.
See, this is actually probably one of the reasons why these manufacturers, right? And liquid applied are great, and there's nothing wrong with them if you use them correctly. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. I've used them, right? That's probably why a lot of these manufacturers are coming out with fast drying.
Oh yeah, for the mortar bed.
For mortar beds, because now. Because if you're working, you want to get it done. You don't want to be waiting around for
your customer wants you out of that.
Yeah, the customer wants you out of there, and you want to be out of there. You want to move on to the next one.
Absolutely.
And then and also with the you got to be careful if you got globs. Like if you got a glob, right? So if you've got a bucket of this waterproofing membrane, it's got a lid on it, it never dries, right? So if you got a big glob of it, the outside dries and the inside stays liquid.
Yeah. So what you're saying is the thicker you go, the longer it'll take to dry.
Yeah. And if you go too thick, it'll never dry.
Yeah. And if you're really going the right thickness, you may be surprised at how long you may have to wait.
Yeah.
And even to meet the perm rating, which is, how much vapor could pass through.
Well, that's also interesting for steam showers.
Sure.
Because you got to meet that perm rating, and a lot of these liquid applied waterproofing membranes don't meet that perm rating.
Let's just back up a little bit too, because we were talking about the cement boards, and there's quite a few different types of backer boards in the industry. There's the glass coated, there's fiber cement, there's foam boards. Yep. So there's a lot of options. And in many cases, like we understand that not only the liquid, we talked about the membranes we used, because there's water. When you turn on a shower, there's water. But there's a second adversary, and his name or her name is vapor.
Yeah, exactly.
and that's where we're talking about perm rating. Now, you and I could say, well, we didn't seem to have problems with vapor, but it's like when my dad built our house in the late 50s. I mean, Sal, you could feel the wind come through the wall.
Yeah. A lot of these older houses don't even have insulation.
Right. They were breathing.
Yeah.
My dad would say they're breathing. And he was sort of against the plastic, the 6 mil poly for vapor barriers. He didn't believe in it. He was old school. But today, the reason the steam and the vapor can be the new, the second item that we have to think about is because the houses are so tight.
And then, just to, so you hear these guys, well, we've been doing it this way for 50 years and we never had a problem. Yeah, but 50 years ago, what you were doing wasn't a problem because the house was built differently. Today, right, it becomes a problem because the conditions you had then are not the same conditions that you have today. So circumstances have changed. So a system that worked 30 years ago, it's probably going to not work as well today.
What I point out too is you mentioned steam rooms and having a lower perm rating and being concerned. And I find a lot of installers, tile contractors, even builders understand that when it comes to steam rooms, they have to pay even more attention. Well, with the vapor and the vapor drive, even a regular shower is getting very similar to what a steam room would do. So, so I think as we move forward, you know, everybody's realizing that full waterproofing, you know, to create that vapor.
And it just makes sense too now. You know what I mean? So
It's not
I don't
that
know if you
hard.
have these numbers in your head, right? So you know, like the Amazon, how many inches of rain falls in the Amazon or on your roof? Do you know those numbers offhand?
Yeah. So in Seattle, it's 36 inches a year.
On your roof.
On your roof. Now, I
And
think
that's a really wet place.
oh, you know what though? I think Mobile, Alabama receives like 70 or 72
Yeah.
inches, so even more.
And what was the number for showers?
Showers is a one person, okay? It's about 1,100 inches of rain a year. One person taking a 12-minute shower a day.
Yeah, so that just goes to show, right?
Yeah,
Just how much water, right?
It's a lot of water. That's
goes
one
through
person.
That shower. Yeah.
One shower a day. Imagine a family of 4, 6, 8, whatever.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you've got a family of 4, 6, 8, you probably got more than one shower, but probably usually you've got at least 2 people, right?
Yeah.
And if you've got a family of 5, right, you might have like the parents use one shower and then the kids all use the same other shower, right?
Yeah.
So, but you know, that's a ton of water, and then if you don't manage that water, and you know, it doesn't take. You've seen how when water intrudes into the structure, the damage it does.
Right. Oh, I mean, it's sad to say, but we've collected so many photos over the years. You know, you know it.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, when benches are just made out of wood, you know, curbs made out of wood and no protection of that. And you expose it to that much water.
Yeah. It just disintegrates.
What do we expect?
Yeah. What do you expect?
You know,
and then a lot of people say, well, use pressure treated.
Oh yeah. I've heard that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Use pressure treated. Yeah, go ahead, use it. And then when that moves, like, it's like taking a trip to another state, right?
I wish I could find this one tile guy sent me a video where the curb had deteriorated so bad. He had gloves on and, you know, a mask because you know how disgusting
mold
things can smell, and mold. And he was using his hands and it looked like wet newspaper. That's what it had gotten to.
Yeah, so. And then if you go into a shower, right, that's being used and it's old and then it's being let to dry, right, and it's been, you know, hasn't been used for years, and you start to take it apart, and then you just take out that, it's like taking out toothpicks, like I don't know, it, you know, it just crumbles apart. I mean, you've seen it, I've seen it. Anyone that's ripped out a shower that's been you know, hasn't worked properly, you know, we've all seen what happens to it. So
you know, Sal, I'm going to add this other point too, because you and I both love the industry. It's why we're in it. It's why we'll be in it till our days are
well
over.
I'm going to be 63 in November, right? And I'm still installing.
Yeah, I'm going to be 59 coming up.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I wasn't working for Schluter, I'd be installing.
Yeah.
You know, because I love it. It's a great trade.
Well, that's another great point too, right? As you get older, you know, this is tough on your body, this trade. It's not like an easy trade. So this is another reason why, you know, cement board. No, I'm going to use foam board because foam, right? You know, and even for floors, right? So I can carry up a roll of, what is it, 320, 300, what is it? Whatever it is, right? I can carry that on my shoulder, try and carry 320 square feet of cement board. You know, you're going to be finished installing the uncoupling membrane, the Vitra, before you even get the board in.
Oh yeah. Well, what I was going to get to though was in terms of showers, you know, I'll ask the audience too. And again, you know, sometimes we got 40, 50 or 60 people, and I'll just say, raise your hand if you've torn out a shower that has failed. And
everyone puts their hand up.
Well, there's a lot of hands that go up, let's say. and I'll ask if, you know, what was the experience like? Pretty gross, you know, all the usual things that we've experienced. But The big question though, Sal, is I will ask those people, I'll say, keep your hand up if the customer you tore that out still went with tile. Almost every hand still goes up, which is encouraging, because you would think that if consumers had a failed shower and they saw how bad it was, you would think they'd be so scared they'd never do tile again.
Well, in fact, a lot of people go to like the fiberglass units, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That kills us, right?
Yeah.
Because we're passionate, we love tile, but it's very encouraging that most of the people who had raised their hands say, nope, I was able to convince them that there's this new way to do it. We're going to do it properly, blah, blah, blah.
Well, but see, that goes to another thing, right? If you if you get informed and you're educated about the system, then you can explain to the customer, right? Well, that failed because they did this, 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 and this. We're doing this, 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 and this, so that'll never happen again, right? And you can, and it's important. Like if someone has a question, trust me, I know what I'm doing. Trust me, right? You don't want to hear that, right? You want to hear, well, this is why, and answer every question, tell them why, and etc. Because if they're gonna have you coming into the house, to do their shower, they want to be sure that they're not going to have a problem. You know how many emails and how many comments and how many people are, they're coming in, they're doing this, they're doing that, and it doesn't look right. And then they just say, trust me, we know what we're doing. Been doing this way for 30 years. I think it's just as important for like the tile guy to be educated, but it's just as important for the consumer to understand. They don't have to know exactly how to do it, but to understand what the process is, so that they can be confident that what they're getting is going to work. And
I used to get the same type of emails, because if somebody, a homeowner wanted our system, because we all have to admit the internet provides information that's available to everybody. You and I started in the trade. We knew what we were doing. No one else knew.
Yeah.
There was no internet.
Yeah. It's a different world today.
So the danger is when, an installer goes to do a job, if they're not doing it according to that manufacturer's recommendations and instructions and specs, a homeowner may say, whoa, wait a second, they're doing it like this on the video.
I recently did a steam shower, right? And they had it done, it was about 5 years old, and it was leaking.
Ouch.
Right? So they hired someone else to come in, and they started to do the steam shower. And they, so now because they had that failure, they did some research.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now these guys come in and they start doing it, and the homeowner sees that there's something wrong, right? Now this is in my area, right? And this is where I do work. So they call me and they sent me an email, and this, that, and the other. It doesn't look like it's doing. Can we come take a look at it? And I was like, I'll come take a look at it. So I go take a look at it, right? So they just had they're actually using foam board, right? It wasn't your brand, but it was another brand, right? And they had all the foam board up. Well, not all of it, most of it up. So I said, this isn't right. This is a steam shower now, right? Which is even more critical. So this isn't right. This all has to come down, right? So now she had 5 years, failed shower. They tore it down, and they had to and they had it started to be replaced. Now I come in, I look at it. This is not good, right? Now they had to tear all that down again. Fortunately, it was just taking down the board, right? And then I went in and I put in a nice Schluter shower. There's a video of this on my channel of that shower, not the tear out, but because they had that company tear it all down again. And then I had to come in and I did the steam shower, how it's supposed to be done. I have another one coming up in around, I think it's about the middle of September. Brand new house. The house is 5 years old. They haven't been able to use their shower. It's a big, huge shower. They haven't been able to use it for 3 years. There's a big piece of ceiling missing in the kitchen because it was leaking so bad. So it just goes to show that you got to make sure that when you install these showers, you do it correctly and you do it the right way, and you use a system that works and that that works.
Yeah, I think between everything that is provided by manufacturers today, the manufacturers have videos. You provide really good videos. There's so much information. There's 800 numbers. It's easy to call. It's easy to get a hold of reps. And it doesn't matter if it's Schluter or any other brand. Those reps want you to succeed. None of us want problems, right?
Yeah, I know. And then if you have a question, like I just talked to Tim the other day, right? I just talked, I had a little question. I forget what it was about. Can you do this? Can you do that? Right? Answer the phone. Yeah, you can do this. You can do that. It's a quick call if you know who your reps are, right? Or if you don't know who your rep are, there's always a technical, an 800 number for a technical, so you can call them up and you can get an answer real quick. So instead of saying, yeah, I think this is how you do it, find out exactly how you do it. Even just fasteners, like the type of fasteners, like you put up some import, right?
Mm-hmm.
What type of fastener are you supposed to use?
Mm-hmm.
Like a screw.
I remember I'll mention the name because we only had Duroc back in the late 80s, early 90s. So they mentioned even roofing nails.
Yeah, roofing nail, galvanized, hot dipped galvanized roofing nails, right?
Right.
And so now you still see a lot of people putting it up with drywall screws.
Right.
And then you tear it out, and what's left of the drywall screw? Practically nothing.
Well, especially if they're not, corrosive resistant.
Yeah, they got to be alkali resistant screws. So even it's a simple thing like a screw is very important.
Right.
So and then the seam tape that you use with the cement board, right?
Oh, we used to use the Duroc brand tape because it was alkali resistant.
Yeah. And a lot of guys, they just say, well, it's tape, let's put it up, right?
Yeah.
And then the thin set eats, the alkalinity of the.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff is eliminated with like a seal system. You don't have, if you're using, and then I'm always like, if you're using a system, right, don't mix and match.
Right. Yeah. What's the phrase? Frankenshower. When Frankenshower.
We know who that refers to too, right?
Well, yeah, I guess I do, but everybody's got their opinion, and that's okay. Yeah. But a Frankenshower would be a combination. I've seen sometimes 3 or 4 different manufacturers. Now, I'll just say this, Sal. When you have a problem with a Frankenshower, you really don't have a manufacturer to call because you became the engineer, the chemist, whatever you want to call yourself, right?
Exactly.
And that's okay. Yeah, it's a free country. You can
do what you want. But
do what you want.
I know, but the thing is this, right? If you got like Schluter, right? If you used all Schluter products, right? Then said you use their Curdy board, you use the Curdy band, you use the fabric, you use whatever, right? What's your warranty on that?
Oh, now that we have thin set for a couple of years, we can give a lifetime warranty. But other companies do the same. If you use the system that they offer,
they'll give a 25-year, they'll give a 10-year, whatever. But the thing is too, right? Lifetime warranty is great, right? But in reality, right? If you're going to have a problem, there's not going to be like in 25 years' time.
Right.
If you're going to have a problem, it's going to be in the first year or so. Yeah,
showers are unique in that they are, because if you have a leak, that's not going to take long.
Yeah.
And, but again, when you mix and match, I'll give you an example. Some years ago, somebody called me to go look at an installation where they were having an issue. And when you start asking, what products were used, there was 4 manufacturer reps.
Yeah. Who's responsible?
Well, and it's not fair because they have their chemistry and method. We have our method, so there's not a whole lot, so really it's pick a system, pick a manufacturer you're confident with, and
just stick with it.
Yeah, and take a look at what's available. Pick the one you think is going to work for you, you like. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. So, most of my showers, right? Occasionally I'll use other product, but most of my showers is, you look on my YouTube channel, right? They're all Schluter, right? So,
that's by your choice, by the way.
yeah, that's by my choice.
We don't pay you to do that.
No, that's by my choice, right?
That's your choice.
So, and then, but the thing is too, Schluter is unique, and now I think they're starting to catch up a little bit. Is like education. You guys are really big on education.
Well, yeah, I'm very proud of that. And I mean, I guess I recognize that even before the company offered workshops, because I live in Plattsburgh, New York, where our North American office is. So Sal, it's like having the Schluter warehouse in your backyard.
Yeah.
So naturally, I was curious to know about their products, and they were very good at telling me what they did and what they were and how to use them. And so I was able to go from 0 to 60 pretty quick with their products.
Yeah.
But then, after using the products since 1991, using it for about 7 years, and then getting hired by them, it was a good feeling knowing that our method of being in the marketplace was through education primarily. So, I was never a hard salesman. Like if I were talking to you 10, 20 years ago, I'd show you what we had. If you wanted to know more, or you wanted me to help you on a job site with the product first time,
Yeah. And then that's the thing. That's the thing about reps, right? And it's not just Schluter reps, but also other companies, right?
Yeah.
If you have a problem, or if you need like help with something, they'll come out and help you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You need, like, it's your first Schluter shower. You call your rep and say, well, I'm not, I've done the workshop, but, I'm not quite sure, but they'll come and help you do it.
Yeah. I always enjoyed that. That's fun, because you get out of the office and
I got a little story for you. So, I had a guy, a builder. I did some work for him a few years, and he does a lot of his own tile work. When he have a complicated one, he'd call me. So he had another complicated one. It was that Ansax tile for like subway tile. It was like different types of, it was a difficult installation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and they were doing a Schluter shower, and they're doing it for the first time. So, I go in and look at it, and I won't say his name, right? And then they go in and say, oh, it looks good. And I said, so did you install this? Oh no, the rep came out and helped us install the Curdy board, and helped us install. Actually, Tim actually installed, that shower, right? But the only thing he didn't do, right, because he didn't have the time, was it had a linear drain, right? That was in, and they had the I forget it. I think it was a foam pan, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So the only thing that he couldn't do was put the membrane, the Curdy membrane, on the floor. So he left that to the builder, right? And it was like they had big, like 24 by 24 thin panel tiles that I had to install on there. So I go to install, I'm getting done with, I'm saying, I go to install it, right? And I'm looking at it, and there's like this big bubble on the floor, right, on the shower floor of the Curdy. And I'm looking at it, I say, this isn't right. So I cut it out, right? So the contractor used a 1/4-inch trowel to spread out these stints there for the Curdy membrane, and then he didn't push it in and collapse it properly, because it's hard to get a flat surface with that anyway, because you're using the trowel is too big, right?
Yeah.
So I had to patch the only thing that he had to do, right? And he got it wrong, and I had to fix it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So just goes to show, right?
I can imagine what Tim did that day, because I've done that with customers too, is get them started. And even before I'd leave, I'd say, why don't you do this wall, just so I could watch and see if they understood, how to.
Yeah, I know. But, I know. I think some people are just, and I'm sure Tim was there. Like, you got to use this trowel, you got to use this, you got to
Oh
do this,
yeah.
you got to
Oh,
do
he's
that.
thorough. Yeah, he's
Right?
thorough. Yeah.
I'm certain, and he still got it wrong. So, I guess there's room for error everywhere, right? So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes I think, Sal, sometimes we have to back up because, we've been troweling for, I don't know, 20, 35 years.
35 years, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So for us, it's so natural that we forget that, for people who don't do it every day.
Yeah. If you go watch some YouTube videos of people that are troweling or they're grouting, like it's hilarious to watch, because for us it's so natural.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you watch them and they're like struggling with it, and it's like, but something, like anything else, it's still skill that's learned, right? So,
well, that's it. We were probably just like that when we started, you know?
Yeah. And then, what I want to get into, how we talked about mud on the shower floor, you guys have foam pans.
Right. And we're not the only ones.
Yeah. Well, other manufacturers, but I'm actually one of those people that very rarely uses a foam pan.
Yeah.
Now, foam pans are great. They're great and they're quick. So, and they can be modified. And there's a lot of tile guys that don't know how to do mud.
Well, that's true.
And that's kind of sad too in a certain way.
It's sad, and those numbers keep getting smaller
and smaller and smaller. And that's why the foam pans, the foam trays are, they really hit a spot, especially if you've got a lot of them to do and they're all the same size and you have. But so what when you're doing a foam pan, right, like a foam tray, right, there are certain conditions you have to meet. Right?
Oh yeah. I mean, just like anything that you're gonna, even if you're putting tile on a subfloor and using, Detra or any type of underlayment, you always want to check joist spacing, quality of the substrate. You mentioned older homes. Oh yeah, I've seen some where they're tilted like
oh
this.
yeah, oh really bad.
So with a tray, they're designed to go on a fairly level, flat surface, within tolerance.
Yeah, well, you can do a little bit of adjustment with but just a little bit, but you can't like make up an inch for it.
No, that's true, and that's what I tell the contractors is you might do 100 of these in quote newer homes, and you forget to put your thinking cap on when you work in the house that's 100 years old, and you don't check the subfloor.
Yeah, and then the water's running out the.
Yeah, it's in that corner all the time, never leaving. Why doesn't it go down the drain?
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to make sure it's flat, even, and load bearing. All those particulars.
So foam trays are great. The only this is just me personally, right? And then the problem that I find with foam pans, right? That's why I don't use them quite as often. But they can be modified to fit any circumstance.
Sure.
Is because a lot of times the drain location is in the wrong place.
Oh yeah.
Right. Then because and then the size of the pan.
The drain set up before you even got there.
Yeah, you even get there, right? So the drain location is the wrong spot. Mm-hmm. And then you can't. A lot of times you can't get the exact size, so you're either going to have to cut it or you're going to have to extend it.
Right.
But the beauty of it, right, is that you can use the foam tray, right? But you can also do mud.
That's true. And in fact, Sal, when we first
you used to teach it.
Well, yeah. There's the integrated bonding flan.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 12 inches in diameter. When we released this in 2001, we didn't have trays. So it was
That's right.
Yeah, these were all done with mortar.
Yeah.
Maybe we should clarify, when we say mortar and mud, we're talking about mixing sand and cement.
Yeah, deck mud.
Yeah. Because sometimes we use terms that people say,
yeah, I don't know, like mortar. Is that like the stuff you put bricks on with?
Right. So in our world, when we float, we call it float, a mortar bed or a mud job. I don't know what your ratio. My dad taught me 5 sand to 1 cement. Yeah,
usually it's 4 or 5 to 1.
There you go.
Yeah. So but I rarely mix it. I just buy the prepackaged stuff now.
Yeah. Well, that's our age. It's hard to mix all that
Yeah.
sand and
Yeah.
cement unless we have a young helper.
That's although I have mixed up to 900 square feet of that stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, so getting back, yeah, our drain and of course our membrane can be used with a mortar bed. So guys like yourself and others who are very comfortable with floating the mortar bed,
Yeah.
the drain placement, like you mentioned, sometimes it's close to the corner or
Yeah, well,
something.
see, that's what I was trying to get at with the mortar bed, right? It doesn't matter how out of whack the
Oh,
floor
no,
is. It doesn't matter what shape the shower is. You can have an L shape, you can have an octagon, you can have whatever you have,
whatever.
right? It doesn't matter, and the drain location doesn't matter. That's the beauty of. But also, right, you just get some Curdy membrane, and you're perfectly fine. It works with that too, and
Yeah. 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 It's kind of like when you use what we'll call the old school of floating mud, which is all the control is in your hands because you create the perimeter and the pitch to the drain, no matter
yeah,
where the drain is.
yeah,
That's the beauty of that.
yeah,
And maybe nothing will ever replace that. And
yeah.
it's like you said, it's sad that there's no training in it per se.
Yeah, and you remember that John Bridge?
Mhm,
They actually Andy Acker, right?
mhm.
I have a little video of him actually doing a mud, showing us how to do a. Do you remember that?
Well, Sal, like I said, we didn't come out with the trays till 2003,
Yeah,
and we were starting to do those workshops down there starting in 2001.
yeah.
So everybody that came to a workshop had to float.
Would see the mud. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
I
had to
have
do
actually
it.
a video clip of him doing, like, explaining the mud and how to do with the mud. I think I heard that you guys are getting back to that a little bit in the
Well,
workshops.
it's one of those things that, because we do so many workshops, it's something we have the ability to do,
Yeah.
and we take it seriously because we're, one company that invests in education. So if we can help people learn mud and not be afraid of it.
Yeah. Well, that's another benefit of these, these Facebook groups, these closed groups for tile guys. A
Yep.
lot of guys that didn't know anything about that are actually getting interested in it. And you see guys that have never done like mud, right? And they've always used like a foam tray. They're trying to do trying to learn how to do the mud shower floors. And a mud floor is completely different to a floating walls, right?
Sure.
But you got to start somewhere, right? So yeah, I'm just looking at my notes here.
Yeah. I think we covered almost everything. I did want to say though, Sal, that, in all the years you've been in it, and, we talked about, the size of the tile going back. 4.25 was a popular wall tile, 6x6. Do you remember the 6x8s and the 8x10?
Oh yeah.
And almost every shower floor back in the day was 1x1 or 2x2 mosaics. They weren't the most beautiful tile.
Yeah, and then they had the paper backing. Remember the paper backing?
Yeah.
Or the random block pattern, square block patterns with the paper backing on them.
But pretty ugly and pretty boring. And
yeah, until I redid my shower here probably about a year and a half ago. That's what was on the floor.
Well, and then the occasional 12x12 marble or granite where you felt like, woo, high end,
yeah,
beautiful,
that
felt good. But so much of it, and I guess what I'm getting at is, I'm out of it now since 1998, and the size of the tiles, the look of them, and so there's all these new trends, and there's trends leading to curbless design.
Yeah, I mean, something you just the size of the tile, that was just something that just occurred to me that I didn't even write down right on my notes here. So 4.25 tile, and then it was bigger tiles, 12x12s, getting bigger and bigger, and now the most popular size is like a 12x24.
Sure.
Right? And a lot of showers you're doing like 12x24s, the bigger tiles. You know what I found recently? What's been happening now? Like tiles are getting to be like 12x36.
Yeah.
Like these are becoming very, very popular, bigger and bigger, 24x24s. And what I'm trying to get at, right, you need flat walls.
Mm.
Flat walls, right? And you know, if you're gonna put up like some backup board, right, you got to shim them out because the studs are never in place. Well, once in a while you get lucky if it's a short wall, like a 3-foot wall. You know, it's usually not too bad. But if you've got like a longer wall, you've always got walls that are way out,
Yeah.
and you got to shim them. And shimming them, like with like the what do you
Takes
call them, the
time.
drywall shims or
Yeah.
whatever, or you sister stud. That's a big, huge pain in the ear, right? And then, you shim this one out. Now this one's not right, so you have to shim that one out. You go back and forth. It takes a long. What do you do with foam board? Make it real quick.
Well, currently, I think we're the only board that we can do this with in the industry, and that is, applying thin set to each
Wet
of
shim.
the studs, wet shim. And we do have a video of that.
Yeah, I actually have several videos, right? So that's one of the beauties of, like a foam board.
Right.
Wet shim it, put it on, tap it in place. I use like a quick set. So a couple of hours later, you put the screws in, you got perfectly flat, level walls.
You're all done. Yeah.
Yeah. Try and do that with a cement board.
And right, you really can't. And so again, I think ours is the only one currently that you can.
Well, yeah.
And it's because, it is waterproof on both sides. So it's not drying out the wet shim, even though the wet shim is there just as a shim. It's not a bonding.
Yeah, it's just a shim. And I'm going to tell you, right, because I actually have a video, right, where, you do the, because what I do is I usually put the board up and then I'll start tiling and then I'll figure out my placement for my niche so that I have it exactly on instead of trying to figure out before, right?
Yeah.
So now you wet shim the walls, right? And then you have to cut out. I have a video that shows just how strong that
the thin stuff, that wet shim, that
wet shim is, right? That it just shows how it's stuck to that, right? And how hard it is and how well it works.
That's a good point because if you're using
sorry, I don't want to interrupt you because because a lot of guys like the thin set's just going to fall apart. It's going to crumble.
No, you make a good point because obviously you got to cut to about half of the width of that stud, so the flange of the niche is bonded.
Exactly.
And you just mentioned something that that thin set can be quite quite hard and difficult to cut away.
Yeah, very tenacious, and it holds on. And if you peel off that little strip of Curdy board, you'll find that back
tears right off.
Gets stuck to the thin set, and it's very, very hard. You don't want to use unmodified thin set to do that, but
So, but you could.
You could
because
for wet shimming?
Yeah, because the screws and washers are doing the finish holding.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, the thin set is just there to
shim.
eliminate those voids of the bent 2x.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to just kind of talk about the new trends. So Sal, some of the new trends that that we've seen on our side of the fence is curbless designs, linear drains, the niches like you just mentioned, floating benches, and also floor warming and showers. So that's, to me, we are where we are today, but we're starting to educate people on those things. And I can tell you, I have a shower upstairs as a curb, and it's a step over. Okay, when you're healthy, that's no problem. But the other part of it is there's more maintenance and cleaning with, the front wall, the top of the curb, the down. We got a track for the door. When it's curbless, the beauty of that, it's just a bathroom floor that goes.
I have a personal experience with a curb shower. That's one of the reasons why I redid my shower, because I don't have a curbless, but I have like a 3/8 inch curb on mine because there was a reason why I did that, but it's very, very, very low. Just the thickness of the tile, right?
Yeah.
So was it last year or about a year and a half ago? I tore the meniscus, in my knee. So I was in crutches twice that year, right? And I wanted to take a shower. I couldn't lift my leg. Over the curb.
Right.
So couldn't take a shower because I couldn't get in. And upstairs we have a tub, so and downstairs we had a curb, right? So I couldn't get in the shower because I couldn't lift I couldn't lift over the curb. So that's why, so it's not just as you're getting older. It's also if you have like an injury or if you have.
I'm telling people, Sal, that it looks better. It's easier to clean. It's got all the, the benefits.
Yeah,
beyond.
And another thing about Curbless shower is if you don't have a seal system,
it's so difficult.
You're gonna have a really hard time making a curbless shower. It's going to be, I wouldn't say impossible, but pretty close to it.
Yeah.
So yeah. But anyway, I think we pretty much touched on everything there. I'm glad we had this conversation. It's fun talking to you, So
yeah, likewise. Yeah. Hopefully, your audience likes the conversations we're having, and hopefully they learn something from it.
Yeah.
And if they like it, we'll do some more, probably.
Yeah. Maybe next time we'll talk about floors or stuff like that. So yeah, it was great talking to you, Brian, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Sal. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.